Senate is scheduled to approve part of the President's American Jobs Act, the part that would help veterans. We're looking for jobs and give tax breaks to companies to hire them. This, however, though, is not being paid for by any additional revenues raised or tax increases on the wealthiest Americans. Well, the President's going to sign this legislation, correct?
We do support it, yeah.
So will the President support additional pieces of his Jobs Act that are passed by Congress that don't include raising taxes on millionaires?
I think the way you phrase it is very useful, so I appreciate the question, Nora. The President will sign legislation that's paid for in a fair way, and if this bill passes, we support it. What he will not do is sign legislation that adds to the burden already borne by the middle class, that requires that I mean, you drew the lines very clearly. Republicans are voting for this. Why? Well, we hope because it's a good idea, but we know from past experience in terms of the things that they used to support that every provision within the Jobs Act is a good idea. But they're going to vote for this one, in your words, because it doesn't include a requirement that millionaires and billionaires pay a little bit extra. So that's their bottom line, I guess, is the way you're putting it. We certainly hope that's not the case when it comes to putting 400,000 teachers back to work, or rebuilding our bridges and highways and schools, or giving and extending and expanding a tax cut to 160 million Americans, $1,500 on average for each American family. If their standard is those are good ideas, but not if we have to ask millionaires to pay a little more, they're going to have to explain that to the American people, because that's not a standard that they support. Their own constituents do not support that approach, do not support that point of view.
You said paid for in a fair way, but it's being paid for, my understanding is, by extending a fee the Veterans Affairs Department charges to back home loans. Is that fair?
Again, we support the legislation. We've obviously believe very strongly that we need to take efforts to help veterans who have been fighting for us come back to the country and not have to fight for a job.
I'm interested in the pay-fors on that, and also because
of
the withholding
tax. Support the bill.
Okay, on the withholding tax, which is part of that too, my understanding is that's going to cost the government $11 billion over the next decade, and that's going to be made up by lost revenue by making it harder for some Social Security beneficiaries to qualify for Medicaid, which of course affects low-income people. So the President,
I don't have all the details on this. I can just tell you that we strongly support.
The President's going to sign something that makes it harder.
Let's see what the bill looks like
if
and when it passes. Okay. Our principles have been clear. Let's be clear about what this President put forward and what Democrats in the Senate have put forward, and how those very sensible and effective solutions to economic growth and job creation would be paid for as we see it, what we think is the preferred option. Now, we'll review every alternative proposal that comes forward and make decisions accordingly. But we firmly believe, given what we knew already and what we now know even more to be the case about who has had the hardest time in the last 10 years, and that's the middle class, who has had the most, who has benefited from the most from the greatness of this country over the past 30 years, and asking them merely to pay a little bit extra so that we can put Americans back to work and grow the economy.
Sorry, just last question on this. You've just laid it out very clearly what the President's principle is on his Jobs Act, and who should be paying more, who should pay their fair share to put forward this jobs bill.
Hey, Norah, I'm happy to take questions about the specifics of this pay for. I just don't have any more specifics to give you.
But is the President now giving ground so that members up on Capitol Hill can find pay-fors in some other way that don't meet the President's principle of the wealthier paying their fair share, and he'll sign it if they can just find some other way?
No, not if they can find some other way. It still has to meet a standard, and that standard will be applied.